Google's Nick Fox leads the Google search team, which just announced some big AI news at Google I/O this week. I sat down with Nick at the show to break down how AI is fundamentally transforming the company's most iconic products, including search, maps, and shopping. We explore the challenge of balancing rapid innovation with user trust as AI features roll out at breakneck speed, and discuss the evolving relationship between AI-powered answers and the open web. Plus, Nick explains how personal context and privacy are shaping the next generation of search experiences. All that, and my co-host Jeff Jarvis also joins for some news analysis next on the AI Inside podcast. What's going on, everybody? Through the magic of the internet, I am now at home, even though I was at Google I/O just yesterday, and boy, what a long day it was. I am I'm one of your hosts, Jason Howell, joined as always by Jeff Jarvis, my friend. How you doing, Jeff?
Good. I'm glad you came back. I know you could have stayed over in a hotel. You could have had a nice dinner. You could have relaxed a little bit, but no, for the sake of the show, here you are.
I did have a nice dinner. I went out with the Android Faithful crew afterwards, Florence Ion and Ron Richards, and we got some food and caught up and everything. But yeah, it was a long day yesterday. I think I woke up at 5 a.m. and I didn't get back here until like 9:30 p.m. And then I had to start working on all this stuff, the interview that we have for today, all the content and interviews for Android Faithful. So a little tired. So, sleep is for the weekend, apparently. It's how I live my life. Someday down there. It's definitely not right here. But yeah, good to see you. We're going to talk about the news. We've also got the interview, so it's a little combo show today. Before we get started, of course, want to throw a big thank you to our patrons, patreon.com/AI Inside Show, and our patron of the week, Eric Sundberg. Eric, thank you so much for supporting us.
Thank you, Eric.
And all of you who do that each and every week. And then finally, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, just go to AIinside.show. That's where you can find all the information you need. With that out of the way, let's start with the news from Google I/O, and then we can do the interview in a little bit. But were you watching the keynote from afar? I'm always curious about, like, when I'm there, there's a certain energy and kind of thing that you pick up on, and then how does that translate to the screen? What were your thoughts?
I'm very eager to hear yours from there. Yeah, I was on with Leo and Paris, so doing a live comment, which means that you miss some things when a bon mot takes precedence over news. And I got to say, at first, I was I don't want to say I was underwhelmed. I just didn't know. What I said was, if I were a tech reporter having to write about this, I don't know what the lead would be.
Yeah.
And because it was just
more
of this and more of that and better this and better that. But then I think we got to the things that and brands that always confuse me. What's the difference between Mariner and Astra and VO and all this stuff? And they're going to change the brands anyway, so you don't really want to commit them to memory because they'll be gone soon.
Totally.
But then I think things did get impressive. I think we talked last week about Google putting AI everywhere. And I think that was in things like Android Auto and your watch, and it was more device oriented from Android. But this week it was more about AI, their version of AI in search. And all the people who've said that AI is going to kill search, no, this is Google's answers. I think it was very important. And I think the glasses were very impressive. That was cool, and I want them. Even though I had PTSD from having bought Google Glass in the past.
Through the people, so they had them on hand there for people to do a very limited demo. So for me, it was my second time because I got to do that back in December, and it was way more limited than what I got to do back in December. But it was really cool to finally witness everyone kind of experience what I had, because I've been saying, I think since then, like, I think this is going to be a big deal when it happens.
Yeah, you were right. You said that at the time, but you couldn't show the video at the time in the way that was going to be evocative. But this was. And so I thought that was good.
The video only does a certain amount of convincing too. Like, it's kind of neat to see, what it can do in view. But when you put it on and you kind of are experiencing the walking around and just looking at the thing and talking to the picture, that's hanging on the wall and getting the information and hearing it and seeing it and everything, it's a whole different story. And it was really cool to kind of, talk to people there who had known that I had seen it before, and now they get it and they're like, oh man, this is really cool. Like, it was definitely the thing that people were most excited about.
We love gadgets, and that's
yeah.
So I think in the end, it was impressive because the AI is good, and Google stock last I checked today was up as a result. The analysts are impressed, and that's really a major audience. Let's see, right now as I speak, it's up 4.3%.
Okay,
which is on a day when I think other things are down, I believe. So that's good. The analysts like it, and the final thing I'll say is that, and this goes back to what we talked about last week. Who is in a better position to put AI in front of us? Next best, you could argue Apple, but they're way behind, and and people on iPhones and Macs use Gmail and use Google Search. You could argue Microsoft, and true to an extent, if you're in their ecosystem, they are going to put AI in front of you. But nobody is in a better position from the consumer side of things to make AI visible and useful. And I think that's an important advantage. There's all the trade version and the programming version and science versions and all of that are different. But from the consumer end, I think it's Google's to lose.
Well, and Google really kind of punctuated this, love it or hate it, AI overviews, as Google said, serves 1.5 billion, I think it was billion. Yeah, it would be billion users monthly. Yeah, it wouldn't be 1.5 million. That wouldn't actually be very impressive. Whoa. For a company of Google's scale, anyways, that wouldn't be very impressive.
We'd take it, but not that.
Yeah, totally. I'd take that, whatever that means. But yeah, that's, so basically they're leveraging exactly what you're talking about. We are the company that, the property that people are already interacting with and engaging with because they've that habit is ingrained. They've been doing it and we talk about this in the interview in a little bit with Nick Fox, but that we've all been interacting with Google at a deep level for so long. Now that these features are touching the places that we already are, and especially products as important as search. I mean, this is the entryway for the majority of people, their first probably introduction to working with AI in any way, shape, or form. And that's probably why the AI mode news, is kind of a big deal, because now, at least here in the US, it's open for everyone. So if you want to use AI mode, it's now a separate kind of call out on the Google search page. You do have to kind of turn to it as a separate place. It's not integrated into search. I think that's the direction that they're heading. I think someday it is integrated.
Well, here's the weird thing. I know they're rolling it out. I still don't have it.
Oh, really?
Do you have it there?
Well, I do, but that's because they invited me like a month and a half ago to be part of an early testing group. And so I've had it, but I haven't been able to actually really talk about it. But I've had it, and I've been able to use some of the new features. Turns out, like, I'm probably gonna get access to features. It's kind of like a beta program, so that'll be interesting, getting early access. Although I don't know that I'll be able to talk about these things before Google says, okay, you can talk about it now. But yeah, it is showing up for me. I think probably part because of that more than anything.
So I'm eager to play with it, and I mean, I can still go to Gemini and I can play with that, but I want to see how it's integrated or how my use changes.
Yeah, and I think that's the big question that I have. And again, we talk about this. I talk about this with Nick because it's kind of one of my concerns. Is search for a long time has been pretty simple. You go back far enough, and it's the the 10 or 12 blue links.
The 10 blue links, right?
The 10 blue links, and that's
if you're
about
not
as
in
simple
them,
as it gets.
You're class, yeah.
Right. But I mean, from a user perspective, that keeps things very simple, and it's very easy to know like what you do with this thing. Now all these other kind of components are coming in. It's getting a lot more visual. With AI mode, there's like you can do dynamic charts and stuff. It's creating more complexity, which is capability, and that's a good thing. But does that have the potential to kind of harm what most people see as a simple product, or should be a simple product? I don't know. We'll find out.
And as we discussed in the show a few times too, the grammar of search changes on our end too, and so are you going to come to? I mean, I've started asking longer questions with question marks in plain old Google, and it gives me some response. Sometimes it gives me an appropriate response. Sometimes it doesn't, and so. Will you find yourself oddly putting the wrong kind of query in the wrong place? But generally, I think choice is a good thing. So once I have it, Google, please give it to me.
Yeah, you know, Jeff, that you're going to be the last person to get it because
know.
you've got like an enterprise account. That's just the way of the world, apparently, for you. So AI mode, definitely big news. The Astra glasses, I don't know, are they calling them the Astra? Do they even have a name for those? Like, I always refer to them as the Project Astra glasses, but yeah. Anyways,
no, I don't think they did. They just talked about XR, Android AR XR. I think that's
the Android XR, of course, that, and then also the partnership. I just saw some breaking news that we're going to have to talk about. Partnership with Warby Parker, the eyeglasses company. And you put this link in here, pop 16% on the $150 million partnership between Google and Warby Parker. I think they also have a partnership with a bunch of other companies, including Gentle Monsters, another eyeglass brand, and a few others. XReal, which is creating. I didn't get a chance to see it because apparently they were to be seen there at Google I/O. But XReal has Project Aura, which is the first Android XR glasses expected to release early next year. So that's giving a sense of kind of like the expected timeline of these glasses. If this is going to beat the ones that Google's been showing off to market, then we're looking at next year before we finally get our hands.
I think the way these things operate, there's always delay.
Yeah, it is the way this stuff works out. But I will say I did get a chance to put the glasses on again and re-experience it.
Yeah. Any new?
No, I think
Thunderbolts?
the second time, my second time using these glasses, I noticed kind of and maybe it's because of the prototype nature of the glasses, but I noticed the kind of plasticky, kind of like shiny, a little cheap quality of the frames themselves, even though they look good when they're on. I didn't notice it the first time, and this time I did. And so I don't know if it's because the first time they were different, or if I was just kind of in a different mindset when I was there, and so I didn't make notice of it. But this time I was kind of looking at them, and I was like, they look nice when they're on, and they look at good at a distance, but like up close, they kind of look like a little bit like a toy, or I don't know. I don't know. I know. I mean, I think partnerships with companies like Warby Parker are going to help with that.
Ray-Ban has worked really well for Meta. It's given them a brand and some style and outlets too, I think matters. And now that Warby Parker has retail outlets and has a huge mail order business, I think that's going to make a difference.
Yeah. They showed off the live translation on stage, of course. And what did you guys think? What did y'all think of that one? When
I thought that was really impressive. And it'd be great. I can't wait to test it out and see. It's only English and Spanish now. Maybe French. And so the problem is I only speak one of those three languages. So I don't know how I can test it easily, but I think it's going to be amazing, and it will be amazing with the glasses as well.
Yeah. For sure. They had the onstage kind of demonstration. And I give Google props. Like for all intents and purposes, none of their stage presentations that were live like burned to the ground. Like
no,
it was just the glasses live translation thing that had a little bit of a hiccup, and I truly believe that was connectivity more than it was a system that doesn't work. Like you can kind of tell what one side of that was working pretty well. Sharam's was working all right, and I can't remember her name, but the woman who was wearing the other glasses, her connectivity seemed to be really dodgy when she was backstage and front stage. And there's only so much you can do. Like Shoreline's filled with people with smartphones, hogging up the internet and the airwaves. So
surely Google gives itself priority though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they've got their own network and everything. But, you
Yeah.
know, I guess there's only so much you can do. I don't know how that all works.
So I just signed into
yeah.
my plain old vanilla Gmail account. Oh, I thought I
Okay.
did. I haven't still. I'm trying to sign into that so I can see whether I'm getting this or whether it's my account, just to try to
Yeah.
help other folks out.
Yeah. Let me see if I pull up. Well, yeah. I mean, I can just show you my screen just to, just to kind of give you a sense. There's the little AI mode call out in the top left corner. So it's just along, underneath the search bar, where you've got all news, images, all those things.
Yep, no.
Right to the left of it is AI mode, and it kicks right in.
Nope,
So
I don't
there
have
you
it.
go.
So
Yeah. Okay. Well,
it's either my account or it's not my account. Maybe it's a Chromebook. Surely they made it work on Chromebooks.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's probably, as Google does. It's always like a little rollout time in order to get there, I suppose. But you'll see it soon. I'm pretty confident that you'll see
I
it
want
soon.
to see it now.
And Google's really, really optimistic about it, and you will definitely hear a lot more about AI mode. Much of the interview is focused on that integration.
Can't wait to hear that.
Project Starline, now Google Beam. So this is the presence kind of way of chatting with people, so it feels like they're right in the room with you. What did you think of that? I saw some eye rolls.
Yeah, it gives me a yawn.
Yeah.
It's expensive. It's for places like Google that do conferences. I don't see the big. I was really
Yeah.
surprised that they led with that in the whole of I/O. That just baffled me. Absolutely. It's if you work at Cisco, you're going to pay attention, but pretty much anywhere else, you're not going to care.
That's a really good point. I mean, what they're talking about with that is highly unlikely to be like a consumer accessible product. Like maybe consumers could buy it, but it's probably going to be really expensive because it involves multiple cameras and probably a specialized kind of display. And you got to have two of them. You got to have one on either side and of the conversation and all that.
Well, Meta did find some limited success with whatever, I forget what the device was called, but their version of that at a consumer level, where you can talk to grandma, that would follow you around and stuff like that. I could see
right.
a consumer version, but at that high end, I don't get the application.
Yeah, I will say, having experienced it, I've experienced it a couple of years. I didn't this year, so I didn't see like where it's at now. But last year and the year before, I got to kind of go in the booth and have a conversation with someone through it. And I will say, it's impressive technology.
Oh,
There's
yeah, I don't
denying
doubt that.
when you're in front of it, like it is incredibly convincing. It does not look like a screen, and they're looking in your eyes and you're looking at it, like it's very
Right.
convincing. It's a really cool effect.
I wonder whether people are actually going to dislike it, though, because you can't kind of hide.
Yeah, don't go into that room if you have any intention of hiding.
No.
But they announced product partnerships with HP. So you're right. This is probably more for like boardrooms and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at my notes from yesterday. I think the other thing that's important is Google backing MCP A2A as a standard for
that's right.
Agentic AI. The fact that Microsoft is backing it as well, and it came from Anthropic. I mean, this is the new-
USB-C of AI, as I think
exactly.
a lot of people call it. Yeah.
And so I think that's important. I wonder how many people will object to it and not want to be on it, how many sites, but I think sites are going to be eager. It's the new GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, or maybe it's going to be called AEO, Agent Engine Optimization. I don't know. There'll be a whole industry built up around this, but if they start with the standard, and people know how to accede to it, that's good for the agent work because they're going to have more stuff to communicate with, but it's also good for the companies that want to try to see how this works. So I think I think that was important too.
Yeah, and I mean, agentic aspect of things came up a lot, integrating into search with Project Mariner and a lot of other different directions. Again, there will be some discussion about that in the interview, but yeah, agentic is another big core theme of what's going on. And I'm super curious to see where that leads, and kind of also to see the monetization aspect of that. How does AI and search, and again, this is something that we discussed a little bit with Nick, but how does AI and search and the need and Google's need to monetize, which they did have some news today about bringing ads into AI mode. So, they're starting to kind of clarify a little bit about that. But when you intermingle that with an agent that, when I say I want to buy this thing, goes out and finds it and buys it for you, how does it choose where it's buying it from? When it chooses this place, is it doing it because it serves Google in the sense of some sort of monetary value or trade or whatever? I don't know. That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, there is going to be need for transparency there. When we started putting media online years ago, there were many debates in newsrooms about linking to our own book sales, and the first belief was, oh, that's wrong. But we were ad media. We had advertising like crazy. As long as we were open about it, when we started Epicurious at Condé Nast, we said, yeah, we're going to link to cookbooks, and we're going to say this helps us. And I think in the end, nobody had a huge problem with it. But I think there's some opportunity there. One thing I was just a little bit disappointed about, you put it in the rundown, but I just want to get to it. I didn't hear, did they mention NotebookLM once?
No, I don't think that they did. If they did, they certainly didn't feature it.
No, not at all. And they had just come out with a new NotebookLM app, and so I was kind of hoping they'd brag about it, because I think it's been the most impressive differentiating thing that Google has done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is interesting. They announced the standalone app for Android and iOS earlier in the week, which would be Monday, not Tuesday, when all the other announcements happened. So they specifically chose to make this a pre-event announcement. And, maybe it's just because, okay, it's an app now instead of just desktop. And what else do we have to say about it? There's no real new feature to it other than now you can access it easier on your smartphone.
Well, you can kind of carry around the audio. I think the opportunity is you can put in a document, have it explain the document to you, and then ask questions of it through audio.
That's a good point, because so many people. That's a really good point, because so many people see this as kind of like a podcast for your information, and
now that you can interact with it,
your podcast is in your pocket.
Yeah, I think it's critical. So the podcast was the gimmick that made the possibility real, and then the ability to interact with that. Again, I always wonder about how prepared people are to ask questions. I don't have a question to ask, so how do I use this, right? But when you put material in, you want to interact with your own material, and this lets you have a conversation with your own material, whether that's a web page or a PDF or a company report. That could be really interesting. I want to play with that.
I bet you're happy to know also that the app has light mode and dark mode, right? Jeff Jarvis and his hatred for dark mode continues on. Some things just never change, Jeff. Anything else stand out
nope,
from the
notes.
Google announcement?
I see you have major breaking news, so we should mention that.
Yes, this is interesting. Breaking news, worth mentioning, because it is kind of just hitting right now, and don't really know a lot about it other than the fact that I saw this headline: OpenAI buying Jony Ive, who's the famous is even putting it lightly, iPhone designer,
legendary in his own
legendary.
time.
There you go, Jony Ive's AI device startup. $6.4 billion acquisition. And there had been rumors that Ive and Altman had been talking about some sort of collaboration. So it's this makes a lot of sense. Obviously, OpenAI has the currency and the mind share and everything to just be like, well, why don't we just buy your company and make this official? And Jony Ive's a huge get for anyone, let alone for something like this. This is going to pique people's interests immediately, as far as like what we talk about a lot, which is what is an AI device? What is an AI first device? And now we've got, the guy who really, helped create, and that might even putting it lightly, the modern smartphone. And here you go. Now he's in a position to create the modern AI device.
So Wall Street Journal says that he will extend across, his work will extend across all the company's ventures, from future versions of ChatGPT to audio features, its app, and other products, according to people familiar. So they're not just hiring his unknown device, because you and I have been dubious since you had got your rabbit. We've talked about, we made fun of the humane pin. dubious that there's AI specific. There it is.
There it is in its home on my shelf.
Just like the museum. So what's an AI device? What makes it separate? I mean, we saw it this week in the glasses. That
certainly that's
Google
one.
has,
Yeah, that's one. Take.
We get that. But beyond that, you already have your phone. That's a device. Is OpenAI going to start a phone? I hope not. That's not going to work very well. So it's interesting that they're hiring him. I mean, they also hired Fidji Simo as the day-to-day management executive at OpenAI, which I think is really important. Fidji, I've known for years from her days at Facebook when she was in charge of lots of things there, like introducing video into Facebook and things like that. She's a brilliant executive, brilliant developer of new products, and so I think bringing her in as real grown-up executive management, bringing Jony Ive in as visionary in terms of design, and by design I don't just mean product design, I mean broader senses of design.
Yep. Broader vision.
Human-centered design and all that. Those are impressive hires. They're important. But again, they've got to go up a mountain to try to convince people to use OpenAI instead of other free versions and up against Apple, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Meta, which already have, of course, huge user bases. And no matter how often they say, oh, we've got lots of users using ChatGPT, that to me is fairly meaningless at this point because it's not integrated into people's lives, I don't think, greatly. I mean, yeah, I hear a lot of colleagues when I asked ChatGPT about this, here's what they had to say, let me email it to you. No, thank you. But there's that kind of level of use, but it's not integrated into lives that way. So it'll be interesting to see what insight Ive can bring. So that's definitely breaking news. Plus, they get a staff of roughly 55 engineers, scientists, researchers, physicists, and product development specialists will come from Ive's company.
Yep, that's right. The creative collective.
OpenAI will be a customer of Lovefrom, and Lovefrom will receive a stake in OpenAI. Oh, so they're kind of keeping them somewhat. Oh, I guess they have to keep them a little bit separate because of the whole fakakta OpenAI corporate structure.
Oh, okay.
Right? Oh, that's interesting.
All equity deal.
Quickly reading the Wall Street Journal here.
Yeah, totally.
I have a growing sense that everything I've learned over the past 30 years has led me to this moment, I've said in a statement, which probably what he said 25 years ago, but fine. I hope we can bring some of the delight, wonder, and creative spirit that I first felt using an Apple computer 30 years ago.
I mean, if there's someone who has the resume and the pedigree to, deliver, have more likelihood to deliver on some of these big question marks right now, like, I think Jony Ive is probably in a pretty good position to do that, or to at least create something compelling. Like I have a bit of faith that he's probably going to create something compelling. Will it win people over in the same? This is the interesting conundrum: is everyone will compare everything that he does there, especially in the hardware sense, against his previous success in iPhone, and can you even match that? And I'm sure a lot of the real kind of hype bros of OpenAI are going to say yes, absolutely, to the moon. But that's a huge mountain to overcome. The iPhone, modern day smartphone. How do you best that? And I guess AI is the technology du jour. It really is the now, it has that energy. It has early internet energy. It has early smartphone energy right now. So,
but I think it
could be right place, right time.
It's important that Google had its moment yesterday to say we have it everywhere. We've been everywhere with AI. I think that's critical here. What I'm curious about too is just in terms of deal structure here. Besides what we've already discussed, deal value. So $6.5 billion, I don't know how it's structured and what way it'll be paid out, and how much is stock that's still up in the air, and what cash they're using from their venture capitalists and so on. But what were they really buying? Did Jony Ive have some secret laboratory that Altman has seen and said, oh, I must have it? It'd be like buying Xerox PARC in the early days. If Steve Jobs had the opportunity to just buy Xerox PARC, what he would have gotten with that. He didn't need it because he just went off and did it anyway. And people left and started things like PostScript, but tremendous value came out of what they'd actually done? Or is Jony Ive alone worth $6.5 billion? Are they,
Right.
are they merely buying the future and saying it's worth for us to put him in our corral so somebody else can't have him?
So someone else can't have them. That's a good question.
Yeah, it's really like, in that sense, it's, well, I was going to say it's like Google buying YouTube in the day, but Google got YouTube.
Yeah,
they weren't buying
that's
the
proven to
founders,
be
they bought
pretty,
YouTube.
pretty good for them. Yeah.
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 So,
All equity deal, all stock.
all stock, okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at right now.
So just dilution.
Interesting.
Yep, very good.
Love a little, I love the smell of breaking news in the morning.
Breaking news.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll set up the interview. And we got a nice, it's a little lengthy. It's almost 40 minutes long, but it's a really, I promise you that we this isn't just rehashing news. Like, I really wanted to kind of focus
This
on
is a
the
great
future of
opportunity to
search.
talk to somebody at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a break and we'll get to the interview here in a moment. All right, so like I said, I did spend yesterday at Google I/O. I had the chance to sit down with Nick Fox. He leads Google's search product team. He actually took over for, I'm probably going to mispronounce, Prabhakar Raghuvan, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Last October, amidst Google's many restructurings, right, all of that AI restructuring, Prabhakar was head of Google Search and Advertising. Nick Fox took over for him. Nick has been with the company for more than 20 years at this point. We get into all things AI and search and a lot more. So I don't think I need
And his
to set it up
title
any-
is,
where is his title?
Is it SVP of Knowledge and
Knowledge
Information?
and Information.
God, what a title. What a great
Yeah.
title. The world
Yeah.
is his, yeah.
But essentially he leads search.
Yeah.
He leads search at Google. He leads, this AI effort and AI mode and all of these things. So if StreamYard is willing, I'm going to go ahead and fire off the interview and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So here you
Great.
go, my interview with Nick Fox.
Fox, it is a pleasure to get the chance to sit down with you. Thank you for joining me on AI Inside today. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me to be here because I was trying to think about it earlier as far as the amount of Google I/Os that I've
What
attended.
number is this?
I don't know. Like, I know that I went when it was in San Francisco still. I probably went 2, maybe 3 years in the San Francisco location.
Yeah.
You've been with Google for a very long time at this point, so you were probably there at those early days as well, right?
Yeah, I've been at Google almost 22 years at this point.
Yeah.
So for a while, I don't think I've been to every I/O, but most of them.
Yeah.
I remember when it was in San Francisco, and we've been at Shoreline for a while now. But it's exciting to be here.
It always is. It always is. There's always so much to talk about. I think it's, kind of talking about your time with Google and your career
Yep.
is a great place to start.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of, 20 years is a long time for any company, let alone the kind of the massive amount of innovation that Google has undergone and transformations over the years. We've been so used to search. Now search and AI are integrating, which we're going to dive very deeply into.
Sure.
I'm curious because you took the role that you're in right now.
Yep.
What was it, like last October?
Yep.
And so that's your most recent transition.
Yeah.
For prior to that, ads, assistant, commerce, Google Fi, you helped launch.
Correct.
RCS.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of these things, like it's almost like I'm saying this is a kind of a fanboy because of the podcasts that I've done, Android Faithful, AI Inside. We've been talking about these projects for years, and especially like projects like RCS.
It's happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big deal. So how
I send RCS messages to my kids. So
Well, yes, and so my daughter has an iPhone, and I'm all Android. There's only so much I can do in the family. She's 15 now, so she has her own choices. And seeing the little RCS chat down there, and knowing that my images aren't going to go through and look like not good
Exactly.
on the other end or whatever. I'm curious to know kind of from all of that experience that you've had over the years, and then stepping into the role that you did last year. What was kind of one of your priorities right out of the gate when you first started in that role?
Yeah. The biggest priority I have is to reinvent these iconic products: search, maps, shopping, ads, through this AI moment, with AI through this AI moment. And that's actually the reason I took on the role. And so I basically had set my priority. As you say, I've been close to these products for a while now, and so I had a pretty clear sense of what the priority would be coming in. And it's the reason I took the role. It's what I was so excited to do. We have these products that are so deeply important to people. They're used a lot. They're deeply important in people's lives. They're these iconic products, like search. And we're going through this amazing technology revolution at this point in time. And through my time at Google, what's been so clear is the technology revolutions, the technology leaps are what have propelled the products forward. And so what's so exciting for me, what I get, I'm a product guy at my core. It's what I do. It's, I go to bed at night, I wake up in the morning thinking about, how to, what gets me out of bed on a Monday morning is, I kind of have to pinch myself. I get to work on these iconic products and revolutionize them. And so that's the priority. That's what we're doing. That's what you saw today.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And when I think about the scale of that too, like obviously Google has, been a historic technology company for such a long time.
Yeah.
And so even these smaller projects within Google still reach billions of users.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's a lot of change and a lot of impact riding on your shoulders, because you make a lot of decisions that are pivotal to these products.
The scale of it makes it really meaningful for us. It also really informs how we do it. We take the responsibility of that very, very seriously. You see things like AI overview started in labs, AI mode started in labs. Obviously we'll talk more about that over the course of our conversation here. But we take the trust that people put in Google and our products more broadly incredibly seriously, and it really informs how we do the work. It also is what makes us so excited to do it too. That we realize that we can impact billions of people in sometimes small ways. It could be a lighthearted thing, and it could be a really major decision that someone's trying to make with our products. And it feels really good to be able to have that kind of impact on people.
Yeah, yeah. When we're talking about search product, which I think for the majority of people is kind of the quintessential Google product,
the
right?
OG.
It's the OG. It's been there forever. It's what really put Google into the minds of the people using the internet in the early days of the internet. And now we're in this moment where artificial intelligence is making such an impact. Like when I think about revolutionary technologies that come along that really change the course and change the direction, the internet was certainly one of those moments. And I'm feeling very similar vibes with artificial intelligence right now.
I agree.
How do the challenges that you face with artificial intelligence, of which there are a lot, and we'll certainly get to those, and search, how do those compare to kind of the challenges that you faced in the previous products? It's almost like there's more, I don't know, there's more, not more to lose, or more, there's more on the line. That's what I'm looking for. There's a lot more on the line when you're talking about Google's bread and butter, which is search.
Yeah, I would say that's how I look at it, actually. It's not so much that the challenge is necessarily greater. I would actually say it's more, what we're looking at is more of an opportunity than a challenge. Maybe I'm just an optimist, but I view it as this amazing opportunity to, as I said, transform these iconic products through AI. This technology is, it's like purpose built for this moment. It's not an accident. Things like Google developed things like the Transformer with search in mind, and so it's not a, this LLM moment, this Gen AI moment, in a lot of ways is a moment really that enables our mission in a way that we've never been able to do before. And so that's the way in which I see it as a huge opportunity. To the extent there's a challenge, you're exactly right. It's that it's consequential, right? And so we need to get it right. We need to, if we make search worse for people, we've done a disservice to the world. And so we care a lot about that. And so it's really important to us that we get it right, that we and that we make search and our products more broadly much better. And that's what we feel like we're doing.
Yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, is it improving? Is it becoming better? It's so easy to fall into the trap right now of throwing AI, the term AI out a million different ways and thinking that's the story. Really, at the end of the day, it's, does this product do the thing I want it to do?
Exactly.
Does it solve the problem?
And that's exactly right. It's not. It could be easy to sort of think of the technology for technology's sake.
Yes.
And what gets me so excited is We're taking that technology, we're bringing it to these products, and we're making these products better. And so one of the things we talked about, Sundar talked about on stage at I/O is AI overviews. AI overviews driving a 10% increase in searches for the types of queries on which AI overviews trigger. What's exciting to us about that is it shows us that we're actually making the product better. I mean, if you think about it, it's actually so hard to move a metric like that. It's actually to actually get you to come back to Google, do another query that you wouldn't have otherwise necessarily thought about doing. What we've done with AI overviews is we have users are seeing it, they're liking it, they're learning that Google can do things that it couldn't do before, and it's causing them to come back to Google more often for more of their tasks. And in a lot of ways, that's the holy grail, right? That's the indication that we found really strong product market fit with the feature, and has transformed how they use this product they've been using for 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah, and that's actually, as you say that, that's what's really occurring to me is this is a product. Google Search is a product that people already have an ingrained habit around. They already know how they use it and what they use it for. And now we've got these new elements to it. And I'm sure on the Google side, well, I'm certain on the Google side, you have the ability to look into those same users and their behavior and understand, like, is this actually sticking, or is it sticky? Is it pulling them in, or is it pushing them away? I mean, you launched AI overviews at I/O last year.
Yeah, a year ago today.
And so we're a year later, and a lot of new announcements to talk about. We have a wider release of AI mode, another aspect of everything. What have you learned about how users are interacting with these features specifically? Like, what are they using it most for, and are there any surprises along the way?
So the first thing that was surprising, kind of interesting, is if you actually look at the chart that we showed about the impact of AI overviews on search usage, that impact is actually very small. It starts small at the beginning, it grows over time. It shows this learning effect. And so so when we decide to launch a feature like that, we actually run experiments, and we run tests for a long period of time to see whether there's an effect, and you need to sort of wait long enough to see this learning effect. So initially people kind of search and they're like, well, did something change? Did it not change? It's because, to your point, because there's so much ingrained behavior, you don't actually see that right away. What happens is, as people start to realize their search experience has changed, that it's gotten better, they actually realize they can do more things and they search more. The types of things they're searching more for, I think of it as these sort of who, what, when, where, why, how queries. The ones that I think are the most interesting are the why and the how queries. So for years, you could come to Google and search for what's the Giant score, or what's the Warrior score. Now what you can do with something like AI mode, or even AI overviews as well, is you can ask, why did the Warriors lose the playoffs? Right? You can actually start to get at the context behind it, and things like that. Or you can ask, like, how do I get, I've forgotten my password, how do I recover it? Right? These types of, like, and so that's another example of a kind of a how kind of question. We often talk about complex queries, things like this, but really what it comes down to is a question that goes one level deeper. I took my younger kid to a tennis match, to a tennis tournament a couple of months ago. We were watching a Djokovic match, and he just lost the first. So this is an interesting example of how it comes together. He just lost the first set, and so it's kind of the question we had is, okay, he's lost the first set. How likely is he to win this match? And Djokovic tends to win, so you would think, okay, Djokovic is probably going to win. But he had lost the first set. If you lose the first set, you're more likely to lose it. What was interesting in that case is there's no website that's really talking about that. Search, a traditional search, which is more sort of information retrieval, wouldn't really be able to answer that question because that doesn't exist somewhere. What AI mode was able to do was able to stitch these different pieces together and say, well, here's how to think about the fact that he's already lost the first set. Here's how to think about the fact that it's Djokovic. Here's how to think about it within the context of this tournament, and actually stitch together a response that brought all that together and connected all those dots. And then I was able to go sort of read, actually there ended up being some very nice websites that enabled me to go more deeply. So this is the type of thing we're seeing is people are asking kind of questions that kind of require more reasoning, more kind of understanding of the topic, really enable you to go a level deeper. And that's what we see in the user behavior.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of giving you a site that might contain the answer. It's about, again, going back to contextualization, which AI seems to be really, really good at.
It's contextualization, it's reasoning, it's connecting dots across, it's getting at kind of what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah.
Now the AI mode product, which just today at the time of this recording, anyways, announced that it's opening up for everyone in the U.S.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
I'm sure your team is very excited about that. I've been using it for a little while, and I've had access to it, and I find that from my own personal user perspective, is that it's very powerful. Yet I run into the situation where I'm like, how do I know that this is the right tool for the thing I want to do? Primarily because I will be honest, I've used a lot of Perplexity, and Perplexity has been doing kind of the AI search thing for a while. And so I've kind of gotten in the habit of this is just the all-in-one kind of Swiss Army knife tool that I use when I'm searching anything right now. And it can do that. And it can do all of these other things. It can write, it can help me, yes, it can help me research, but it can also kind of write out prose, or it can do this, that, and the other thing. And sometimes with AI mode, what I'm wondering, and I'm curious to get your take on this, the long-winded way of saying it, is how do you ensure that everyday users know what this tool is good for when you do have Gemini as a separate app, when you do have these other things, and there's a lot of crossover. It can be a little confusing, I guess, is where I'm coming from.
So from a search point of view, our general premise is users shouldn't need to think about it. And so from a search point of view, we will bring as much of the sort of cutting edge AI and the innovations from AI mode directly into the main search page, the main search experience. You shouldn't need to go somewhere else for it. This is something we've been doing for years in search. We've had sort of images mode, but we also bring images into the main search experience. So I would say for the 90%, maybe even 95%, sort of everyday user, they should just think they can come to search and ask anything in search, and that will have the best responses that we can bring to them, whether that's an AI response, whether that's blue links from the web, whatever that might be, right? And so that's the broad way we're thinking about it. We think there's a set, we know there's a set of power users that are looking for an AI for kind of AI all the time experience, and you can think of that like a user that wants sort of direct images mode or direct shopping mode or things like that.
Right.
So that's the general way we think about search. Is the main search page should be kind of everything you need, and then if you want to go deeper in one dimension or another, we offer other experiences for it. We do think of that as distinct from an assistant, and so we think of Gemini as an assistant. It's your personal, it's your personal assistant. Will help you get things done for you. I think in general, people have a general mental model of a search engine relative to an assistant. There will be areas of overlap. We shouldn't say if you come to the assistant and ask an information question that we can't do that. And we shouldn't say if you come to search and ask something that's more of a task that's you're trying to get something done, we shouldn't fail in that moment. And so we try to meet users where they are. But our North Star is search as a search engine, an AI search engine. And Gemini is an assistant.
Yeah, it really seems to be about with AI mode and AI overviews integrating in search as a user. How do you get a more impactful search experience versus kind of the assistant, the overall assistant thing? When I start to think about that, I start to think, okay, what about data access or transfer between those systems? Because like you say, there are power users that are going to use all these things. And we're starting to get more contextual awareness on a deeper level, personal contextualization. Like, is that in the roadmap? I know you mentioned a little bit today about kind of in the future AI mode having access to Drive and that sort of stuff. What about between the AI products themselves? That might be a little bit more challenging, I'm guessing.
So we will enable people to connect. So personal context is a big area of focus for us. We think enabling these experiences to be personalized to you. One of the areas we talked about was in the area of recommendations. I went to another city. I wanted to get a sense of what restaurants I should check out. It's actually quite helpful for AI mode to be able to pull in knowledge of what restaurants I go to. I live in San Francisco. Get context of those types of restaurants to inform what I might be interested in a new city. Now, of course, I should check out the local cuisine of the new city as well, but sort of understanding enough about me to make those recommendations more helpful turns out to be incredibly useful. That personal context can come from a number of sources. It can come from search. We talked about Gmail, but you can think about this as this will be quite broad across Google, always with the user permission. So if they want to enable that, they can. If users don't want to enable that, they don't need to, and we'll still provide helpful responses even in that case as well. But you should expect to see personalization and personal context being quite a broad effort across our products, and we'll see which connections make most sense, and let our users kind of lead the way in terms of what's most useful.
Sure. I mean, Google just has such a wide swath of solutions for very different things. Like, I know for me, I'm open to it. I'm open to just kind of opening the reins and being like, take a look, take a look through what you know about me through my email, through my drive, connect it all together. I want as useful an outcome from that. Some people obviously aren't going to feel comfortable with that, but you give them the ability to trim that back and say no. They can still use AI mode, but it's just not going to pull that particular piece of context if they switch it off.
Exactly. And I think most users will decide based on whether it's useful, right? If this is able to be transformatively useful for people's lives, they'll do it. If not, they'll pass. But to your point, for sure, AI mode will be useful, and all of our products will be useful. Even without that personal context, we'll make sure that sort of both ways of using the product are super useful.
When you have these different directions, these different kind of aspects or different recipes or ingredients of the same recipe, I'm trying to come up with an analogy here. You've got Gemini going in all these different directions. Of course, that's feeding into AI mode, and then you've got the Gemini itself. How does your team, or in collaboration with the Gemini team, how do you decide which features debut where?
Yeah. It's funny. We don't quite look at it that way. The way I'd frame it is, the way to think about it is, we have North Stars. And so search and AI mode and AI overviews has a North Star being a search engine. That's what I was mentioning before. Gemini has a North Star being personal assistant. And so you then back from that North Star to say, okay, what features make sense? So if you look at something, we talked about bringing Astra capabilities into search. You can think of Astra, at least in the context of how we brought that into search, as a form of IO, right? You could have typed something, you could have spoken something with your voice, you could have taken a photo. Live video is a very natural way to provide input into a search engine. It's also a natural way to provide input into your assistant. And so that's a capability that should exist across. We don't sort of say, hey, Astra should only be in one, it shouldn't be in the other, or there's no kind of there's no arguments between the teams or whatever, right? We just see it as that's a core capability that should be across. We also don't try to make sure everything is duplicated, right? That's all. It's really what makes sense within the context of this product from a vision, and what's the North Star of the product. And then we'll also let our users lead the way, right? Search is not the place where you're necessarily writing code, and you're probably not going to have a full-on code editor in search. Yeah, so people do bring coding questions to search, right? People do bring, what's this function, et cetera. And so there will be some coding capabilities in search. How far it goes, we're gonna, we'll let our users kind of indicate with their usage and their feedback, and go from there. I think if we're too sort of philosophical about it, we're kind of getting in the way of letting our users guide us.
Yeah, kind of figure out how they choose to use. Yeah, so search, obviously, over the years, it began a lot simpler. It was blue links. It was the 10 blue links, as they like to say.
That's more
that was a long time ago.
Like 25 years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But that started this expectation of Google search being about simplicity, and it was definitely the thing that's made Google stand out from the competitors, right? Like Yahoo and Excite. I can't even remember the other ones at this point. But they were all a lot more clouded and a lot more cluttered by comparison to Google, that really focused on simplicity. Now we're in a point where AI mode, Mariner agentic actions, Gemini live voice, now it seems like search is more of like a suite of products within the search kind of collective, let's say. And is there potential harm in possibly threatening the simplicity perspective of what Google search is, that people no longer see it as the simple destination to just find the thing? Although I say that and I realize like a lot of the times the AI that I'm getting out of Google search is finding me the thing, but there's kind of a trust perspective that goes along with that too.
So it should feel like a single product, and certainly if we do our jobs right, if I do my job right, and our teams do our, it should feel like a single product. It shouldn't feel like a suite. It shouldn't feel like you need to decide, am I going to use Mariner Agentic? Am I going to use the Astra capabilities? It should just work. And I think that's what the feel will be. When we talk about the stuff on stage.io, we sort of talk about it as individual features, and I think it comes across that way. But in the user journey, what we're really focused on in the user journey is that it just works and it's just natural, right? And so you won't even necessarily need to, this kind of gets back into what I was saying, that the bringing AI overviews and AI mode together. If we can answer the question well in an AI overview, we should just do that, right? It shouldn't be that you need to decide, I'm going to go somewhere else. And if you want to go deeper, you'll be able to go deeper right within the AI overview itself. And so the user shouldn't have to think about it, and that's the design principle we have. And we've done a ton of work from a user research side, sort of working through this with the users, and from a design side to really focus on simplicity. So simplicity, I agree with you, is a hallmark of Google. It's a core area of how we think of what people have come to expect from Google. You can just type whatever it is into this search box, and it just works, and you get the response, whether it's a link to a great piece of content, whether it's a response right there, whether it's whatever it might be, right there, and that is that's our North Star.
Yeah. AI updates launching faster than ever. I mean, the progress happening in the industry is just, it's hard to keep up because so many new things announced all the time. It's hard for all of us, right? And I think it's just kind of the lay of the land right now with a legacy product like search. That potentially has the impact of user trust, users wondering, like, there are so many changes happening so fast to this search that I was so comfortable with before. How do you address that? How do you keep the speed of development in check and in line with how users perceive the product as being trustworthy, and giving them not only just quick answers, but answers that they can trust?
So we take this super seriously. I would say this is our this is the baseline. And if we can't do that, there's really nothing else. So we take this incredibly seriously in two ways. One is people have come to trust Google. People expect that responses from Google are accurate, they're reliable, they're trustworthy, they're high quality. And so anything we ship, we test extensively from that point of view. We red team, but we also just do an enormous amount of quality evaluation to make sure that it meets the bar that people expect from Google and exceeds that bar, right? And we want to keep on pushing that forward. So we have very strong measurement around this, as well as very strong controls to make sure that we only push out improvements. It could even be that it's not a new feature, just like a model improvement. We need to make sure that model improvement doesn't regress and should improve, again, quality, reliability, accuracy, those types of things. The second element of that is we also want to make sure we're not thrashing our users, right? It can be very annoying if, why did you move my cheese? That kind of a thing. And so that's another really key thing for us as well. We need to do two things simultaneously. We need to innovate and bring the future to people, but also not thrash people around and have the experience changing sort of day in and day out in a way that's annoying and unpredictable. That's where things like having labs is super helpful. So AI mode is shipping today, but it's been in labs for a while. It went to trusted testers before it even went to labs, and so we've been developing it. We've been refining it. that gives us the confidence to know that we're shipping something that actually makes sense for people versus shipping something we might want to pull back later. And so, that's a really, really key piece of it. It's also why AI mode is a separate tab that you can actually sort of get to.
Yeah.
Again, this all comes down to how do we simultaneously give people a reliable experience that they understand how to use. They shouldn't need a user manual to figure out how to change it, but we also are innovating on the cutting edge at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Now, given that, today on stage, I think I heard I can't remember which speaker it was who said this, but this is the future of search.
Yep, that was Liz. Yep.
Yeah, and when I heard that, I was like, all right, so if this is the future of search,
Yep.
is there a point at which AI mode isn't a separate thing? Like it just kind of is what the search engine is? Is that something you can speak to?
It may be. I think we'll see where we go here. We will listen very closely to our users on this. There's a number of ways that could happen. It could be that we just switch over to that at some point, or we've not given people the ability to default into AI mode yet either. It's still
Still, it's a destination you have to choose to go to.
It's still something you need to choose to. It may be that we just bring over, we will be bringing features from AI mode directly into the main search experience. And so it may just be that the main search experience sort of naturally evolves in that way as we do that. Or it could be, it could be at some point in time we hear such overwhelming demand from our users to shift it, or at least to enable people to sort of choose what their default Google search experience is. So we'll listen. We'll see how this evolves.
That makes sense. Cool. This is all awesome. We're focusing a lot on AI mode, but part of that is just because it's just so important, and I think it's so impactful for people because we like to think of, people like to say that like search is that's so like then versus now, but it's still very relevant, and this is how we keep it relevant.
We agree.
I'm sure you do. From a user perspective, how are the answers that are provided? No. Let me rephrase this. When I think of Google search, and when I think of search engine in general, but especially Google search, I think of websites being ranked to be either authoritative or not, and that's why you end up seeing it or not.
Yep.
And I'm curious to know how that is decided in the AI mode experience. How is a website, or sampling of websites that you see on the right side, that little kind of collection of links that appears there, how are those chosen to be the representatives of what is presented in the bigger picture?
So there's two things I would say here. One is, it's a great question. One of the reasons we're able to do such a good job with AI overviews as well as AI mode is that we understand the web incredibly well, right? This is the bread and butter of Google. It's what Google's been doing for 25 years at this point. So web ranking, quality of sites, relevance of the site to the query, authority of a site, these are all things that we have spent enormous amounts of engineering hours on. We have really, really great teams on. And so that's a really core input into all of the AI that we bring to users, is that deep understanding of the web, understanding of authority, all of that. What then gets added to this is the AI models and the reasoning on top of that, and connecting all that across. But the rootedness in the web, and actually the rootedness in our knowledge graph, and sort of understanding all the facts and places and products and everything in the world is a very, very factual, deeply accurate sort of set of data. All of that really enables a very high level of accuracy, factuality, reliability from that point of view.
Okay. Then we have publishers as well. They over the last year, especially with AI overviews, there was the concern from a lot of publishers that AI overviews, being that it's giving the information right there, was reducing the amount of clicks. And of course, Google, I can't remember the exact quote, but said that they were high quality. There were higher quality clicks coming to these sources. And I've seen studies since then kind of claiming the opposite. I'm curious what you can share on that topic that might ease the fears of publishers or address that.
So I'm a web optimist. I love the web. Google obviously loves the web as well, and we care deeply about the web. There's probably no company that cares more about the health and the future of the web than Google, and I personally take that that mission very seriously. We've looked at these studies. These studies are, I think the methodologies can be questioned. Some of these studies sort of say, hey, this site has lost traffic, but the time frame they look at was before AI overviews even launched, right? And so there's a bit, sites can gain and lose traffic. I mean, like sites can gain and lose traffic for any number of reasons, and it's sort of understanding the causality of that can be challenging. So I think I question a lot of the studies that have been put out there. From our point of view, the web is thriving, and I think certainly what I've seen through my own usage, we see this in the data as well. People are still very actively clicking through to the web. We were looking at some data the other day. The number of, we obviously have crawlers that crawl the web to build our index. And so we see a lot of the web. The number of unique sort of new pages that our crawlers have seen, if you look at April of 2025 versus April of 2023, so in the past 2 years, it's gone up 45%. And so that's sort of one way of thinking, how's the web growing? Well, from that metric, the web has grown 45%, which kind of intuitively makes sense. We see a lot more content. I think you and I both probably see a lot more content than we did. And so people are still creating.
Some of that created by AI.
Some is created by AI. Some is not, and some is part created by AI, some not. As a helpful tool towards it.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing we saw, this was public data. This was external data. Visits to the web are also increasing year on 2 years, and so the web really is thriving. I think it's a somewhat a kind of reductionist analysis to say that the AI replaces the web. It's not. It's unlikely that a single paragraph or a couple of paragraphs is going to replace a full, well-researched, article on something, or people like the experience of reading, et cetera. So, our view is this will be a hugely expansionary moment. This will be a hugely expansionary moment for the web. It will be a hugely expansionary moment for users in terms of the types of things they can do. And that's really the history. People have been talking about the death of the web for as long as I've been at Google. It's been, the death of the web has been coming for 25 years. It's not happening, right? Every time you take a technology leap forward in the internet, in the web, it leads to an explosion of content. And the point of search engines is to help separate the good from the bad and help, organize all of that. But we think the web is thriving.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about, that's monetization from a different perspective, but I'm curious about monetization around this product because, Google has been very successful at monetizing around search. How, what is the strategy or approach for monetizing around AI in search, be it AI mode or, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So within the main search experience with AI overviews, we continue to show ads, alongside the results, including alongside the AI overviews. Continues to be an effective way to both monetize a results page, but also bring helpful commercial content when users are, if a user is shopping for Nespresso pods, showing places you can buy Nespresso pods is quite useful. If you're looking for a pair of sneakers, finding ads where you can buy sneakers is very, very useful. So we believe deeply in that, and so that's the core model there. We're not yet showing ads within AI mode. In some of the, if you had sort of an eagle eye, you would have seen in some of Vidya's some of the experiences that Vidya showed, there were ads within those experiences. So that will be AI mode we think of as a core part of search, and so it will monetize with advertising. You'll see us do that, I would say, relatively carefully and cautiously to make sure that that we're doing the right thing there. But that's the approach.
What this has me thinking about is the announcement around Mariner and the kind of the agentic quality and the potential of monetizing
around that? Is that kind of part of the potential plan as well? And how does that impact kind of the I don't know, the impact of the product if someone knows like there's money driving those decisions?
So Mariner is much earlier along, and so I would say we're not quite at that stage of figuring that out. What I would say though is, the example that Rajan gave on stage of he chose a set of tickets to actually buy.
Yeah.
You can imagine that he could have chosen he could have chosen one that was promoted, right? He would have known that it was promoted. He would have known that it was an ad, and then it could go through the same sort of agentic flow to enable the checkout, et cetera. So, it's our general view is that as long as a user is trying to do a commercial task and there's a business that's trying to reach that user, we have an opportunity to play in connecting that user with an advertiser. And so exactly how that changes over time, the form of that might change over time, the level of automation behind that might change over time, the look and feel of that might change over time, but there's kind of a fundamental kind of economic need there, both for the user as well as for the business. And Google views our role as connecting those two. And again, how we do that over time will change, but the general premise remains.
Excellent. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Nick.
Likewise.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sitting down with me, and I'm super excited to see how this all transpires and evolves, and I know you are too. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, and
All right.
there we go.
Good work, boss. Good work.
Yay.
Fascinating discussion.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. Nick was awesome. So many of the topics that we talked about, I just felt like it was a great opportunity to kind of ask from the horse's mouth about how these very important technologies are integrating and how people are going to respond to those. Still an open question.
I made a few notes, but first I want to get something off my chest. I can't get it in Workspace or education accounts. While I was watching that, I was looking, and it's just driving me nuts, which means that almost everyone in that audience yesterday couldn't get this.
Yeah.
And they don't even say it, only if you go through some levels here. Why is that the case? It's irritating as hell. It's a huge part of their market, and that's driving me nuts. All right, got that off my chest.
Yeah. I wish I had thought of that during the interview.
No, you would have known. You would have known because I was sitting next to you and I would have been cursing at the time.
By the way, Jason.
Yeah. Give me his email, will you? So then, but a few things really struck me. What struck me most was when he said that Transformer was created with search in mind.
Yeah.
That's to say, I would love to, in the history of this, to go back and see what memos and discussions were held at the time, and how much of what we're seeing now was in fact a vision then. Was in fact a dream then, to say if we have a machine that could do this, and let's make that machine, what does it take to make that machine? What was the chicken egg here? Did they have a vision for a literate machine and the impact that would have on search and interaction with the web, and then they went and built Transformer? Or did they build Transformer first and say, this is cool, what else could it do? And I'd love to just know that. And we're not going to know that right now, but I hope that these kinds of things are held for historians to go back and see. That was one. Two, he talked about the learning effect, which we've talked about. And I think it's really important that they say that people have to learn how to use this. How the uptake is he said, is small at the beginning. And we've talked about how it's training people to ask questions differently. Personalization is interesting because one thing that Google has said through the years is there is no filter bubble. The filter bubble is a misnomer because when I search for something and you search for something like climate change, we're going to get essentially the same answers. Well, now that's going to change because it is going to be done in context. It is going to be more personalized. And so when filter bubbles were always a myth, and I don't have any problem with personalization. I think it's a good thing. But it's going to bring back this interesting thing of, is Google giving me a different view of the world than you? Necessarily so at some point.
Am I seeing too much of my own worldview and not being
Right. And then
presented
finally,
with a realistic picture?
Exactly. Finally, he said that the web is thriving. But that was from the perspective of people using it and them sending clicks to it. It's not from the perspective of the quality of the web right now and what's on it and what Google has to search from. And, I argue that whenever we have an explosion of content and speech, We have a need to help get through all that. That's what Harper's Magazine was. That's what the genre of magazines were. That's what editing and publishing did. So the question to me in the long run is, will AI be an effective means of finding the good stuff and cutting through the dross? So it was a very provocative interview because it brought up a lot. Those were my notes.
Yeah. I wish you were there. We could have followed up on some of this stuff next year.
No.
Come to
It was
Google I/O.
nothing follow up. You couldn't have squeezed anything more in the time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's interesting to follow up on these things over time.
For sure. I would have loved that extra perspective while we're there. Cool. Thank you for the reflections. I appreciate that. Thank you everybody for checking out the interview. We're going to take another quick break, talk about just a quick bit of news around Microsoft, and then wrap things up because we are already pretty long on this episode. So hang tight. All right, to round things out, I think it's important that we give some equal airtime to the fact that this wasn't just Google's week. This is also Microsoft's week. Microsoft had its Build conference. Actually, I don't know if it's still having it, but I don't think so. But I could be wrong on that. Truth be told, I know a lot less about Microsoft Build than I do about Google I/O, just from a historical perspective. But just a couple of things, related to AI. Certainly, it is, there were a lot of announcements. GitHub has a new coding agent embedded into GitHub Copilot. Autonomous tasks like fixing bugs, adding features, improving documentation, refactoring code. Just there was the term of vibe coding kept coming up at Google I/O, and then we've got this, which is different from vibe coding, but I think what it shows is just a general trend in development in general of these tools, and actually these tools becoming more prominent, becoming more involved. And if there's something that I can say about I/O that kind of relates to this, because I don't want to take it right back to Google, is that one thing I saw from the tenor there that I wonder if it's similar to at Build, is that people weren't talking this year as much about like, can we just get over AI? Can we just move on? I'm sick of hearing AI. Yeah. People were far more accepting of it and understanding that, like, love it or hate it, it's just kind of where we're at. And this is, and understanding why we hear so much about it, why we hear so much about the coding aspects of artificial intelligence. And so these tools, love it or hate it, I guess it's here. And it's impacting greatly how these industries are run.
Interestingly, one of the things that Google announced yesterday, I forget the brand name because I do that, is usable on GitHub. So it's Google advancing GitHub too. So I found it for coders. So it's acknowledged as the place.
Yeah. This, of course, is an agent. It's an agent that can do things like firing off clones of code repositories and analyze the code base and push out changes, documenting the progress over time. So agent. That was at Build. That was at I/O as well. Also, Microsoft announcing. You mentioned. I can't remember actually if you mentioned it in our first discussion. I think you did.
Yes, I did. The MCP
model context protocol. That's right.
Yep.
I couldn't remember if it was pre-show or during the show. But anyways, Microsoft also, announcing that Windows is getting support for MCP, launching Windows AI Foundry.
So if you're a company
platform
out there and you have a website and you want to be discovered by agents, better hide the standard now and figure out.
Seems that way.
Your website to this.
Yeah, because they're all getting on board. And
or you may not want to. You may want to say, don't bring me up in agents. But I'm not sure why that would be. I think you have to play.
Yeah. This right here brings AI agents, those agents, closer to kind of the Windows experience. So, you could imagine using Perplexity to find... Oh, I think I heard a ring. Find all the files related to my vacation in my documents folder, right? So it's kind of like it's this intermixing of these services that you're using and their capabilities being able to reach into the Windows environment and interact with your machine. And this is just the beginning. We're going to see a lot more of this in the coming, next couple of years, I think.
You didn't hear a ring. You heard. I thought I turned off all audible alerts on my new tablet. I haven't figured out how to do it yet.
Oh no! Are you liking that tablet, by the way? Is it doing the trick,
all in
or?
all, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. because I had advised or given my impression or my my own opinion
yes.
on Android tablet. And you got the Samsung Tab
10
S
FE, it's cheaper.
FE Fan Edition, I think is what they call it. Okay, cool. Well, I'm happy it's working for you. That has nothing to do with AI, but everything to do with my curiosity. And that's really about it. I know there was more from Microsoft. We're going a little long, but I wanted to make sure that Microsoft got a couple of call outs from Build.
And I'm really glad that you got the respect for your expertise and how you're covering AI to get that interview. And so I think it says a lot. And so folks, keep on coming back for more. Jason's a star.
Thank you. It was fun, and it was great to meet. I love meeting kind of new people in the Google world. And then, you know, like I said in the interview, it's kind of a little bit like a fanboy experience, because it's like I talk about these topics. Like RCS was on Android Faithful for years, you know, for a handful of years, and we all wanted it to succeed and become what it is becoming. And then to meet the guy that, you know, was kind of leading the charge and everything, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's cool. Yeah.
I enjoy the opportunity. So, jeffjarvis.com is where people can go, where you all should go to check out the wonderful work of Mr. Jeff Jarvis, The Web We Weave, the Gutenberg Parenthesis, now in paperback. And magazine. And then
will be an audiobook after I go in and record a few of my flubs on Friday.
Oh, no. They got to match the audio from two different sessions.
Yep.
That's always fun. There you go. jeffjarvis.com. Find everything you need to know about Jeff and his work there. As for this show, AIinside.show is the website where we have all the ways that you can subscribe to what we are doing in podcast form. You know, we post every episode. We had our interview episode last Saturday with Intel's Robert Halleck about AI PCs. So if you're curious about what an AI PC is and how Intel is influencing that aspect of the market, definitely check out that episode if you haven't already. And then finally, patreon.com/AI Inside Show. If you want to support us on a deeper level, well, we welcome that. We appreciate that. And we have some amazing patrons doing exactly that. You know, there's a number of different levels that you can support. If you go all the way up to the executive producer level, which I know, you know, it's a little pricey. It's $20 a month, but it really helps the show thrive. You get a t-shirt, you get your name called out, and as you can see on the screen, it's also shown Dr. Do, Jeffrey Maricini, WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina, Dante St. James, Bono Dayrick, Jason Neiffer, Jason Brady, and Anthony Downs. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Lou, for the super sticker.
Oh, did Lou give a super sticker?
Yeah, just now.
Look at that. Thank you, Lou. That's amazing. We got some wonderful fans, wonderful people supporting us. So thank you for doing that. And I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and end this, and we'll see you next time on another episode of AI Inside. Bye, everybody. See you next